Convergence FM.
Convergence FM.
La radio panafricaine 103.9.
Dear Mr. President Nelson Mandela, dear Madiba, dear friend, on behalf of all the members of the World Economic Forum, I would like to extend to you our warmest welcome for your third visit to our annual meeting. I also extend a very special and cordial greeting to your wife, Mrs. Marshall, whom we are delighted to meet here for the first time. I have had the opportunity and honor of welcoming many heads of states in Davos. But when it comes to you, Mr. President, it is a very special and a very cherished moment. We do not only welcome the head of a state today, but we welcome the man, your spirit, your vision, and your determination for justice. The Rivonia trial, Robben Island, your 27 years in jail, and your liberation in February 1990, we all very well know those milestones in your life. But as I read your book, A Long Walk to Freedom, I was struck by the countless and less known sacrifices you made early on in your life in order to deliver your people. I mention these things today as I did when I first welcomed you to Davos in 1992, because I feel no one should forget that South Africa's transition to democracy is truly a miracle, which took place because you decided to sacrifice your life for your people. The World Economic Forum takes great pride in having accompanied you and all South African, our friends, over the last decade. In the late 80s and early 90s, we were searching for ANC officials living in exile camps and integrated them already at that time into our community. Mr. President, you will be stepping down from the presidency in a few months' time, and I know that numerous people here question what future South Africa can have without you. Let me say to these people that South Africa holds a powerhouse of young people and young talents whom we have met here and in your country over the last decade. Young, well-educated and dynamic politicians are ready to continue your work, and the private sector is nurturing new entrepreneurs who can drive the South African region to a prosperous future. Mr. President, you are most likely the greatest statesman at the end of the century. Your achievements form a guiding light which all of us should consider as we build the 21st century. Before you take the floor, I would like to read out loud your closing statement at your trial. It summarizes, in my opinion, best your strengths, your courage, and your life's work. I quote, "During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I'm prepared to die." End of quote. Mr. Mandela, you are an inspiration to all of us. Welcome to Davos.
Chairperson, distinguished guests, let me begin by thanking you most sincerely for affording me the opportunity and privilege of addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos for the last time as President of South Africa. South Africa's leadership has had a close and fruitful relationship with the World Economic Forum over the last 8 years. Such is our approach to the international business community, that our new democracy never hesitated to accept your kind invitations to participate in this rigorous forum. I hope that by doing so, we have been able to convey information about the challenges and the potential of our wonderful land. We have been lauded, politely listened to, and pilloried for some of the things that others and I have said on various occasions here in Davos. Indeed, I have vivid memories of this process during my visit here in 1991. It has taught us much and reinforced our belief in dialogue and interaction with the international community. The success of the annual regional summits has confirmed us in this judgment. I would therefore like to use this occasion to invite you all to this year's Southern African Economic Summit in Durban in June this year. While I will not be able personally to welcome and host you, I can assure you of South Africa's warmest hospitality and for many opportunities to promote our mutual goals. However, if you should, during your visit, see an old man by the road carrying a placard saying, "No job, no money, a new wife, a big family," please spare a thought. What has stood out in all our interactions with you is your profound goodwill towards South Africa. I doubt if you know how much this means to us. To ensure a better life for all our people is a complex and difficult task. Your support strengthens our efforts and inspires us. We know that this goodwill arises from the desire of good men and women everywhere that South Africa should succeed in reconciling our people, and that we should lay the scourge of racism at rest. This requires strong democratic institutions and a culture of compassion. None of this is possible without a strong economy. The challenges we face combine many of the great challenges that face our global society. We need social stability that is based on socio-economic development. We must nurture tolerance, collective wisdom, and democracy. Like all countries, we must provide a real personal safety and security against criminality and abuse of human rights. The fact that we face these global challenges at this precise moment, that we have become free with the world's support, places special obligations on our new democracy. Some people argue that we should focus on our own immense problems and leave others to their own devices. That would be to turn our back on those that help liberate us, often at great cost to themselves. It would be contrary to our morality, which will not let us desert our friends, who in our interdependent world can turn their back on people in other lands when press, radio, and television brings us the graphic reality of abuse, death, genocide, and senseless and destructive wars. Is globalization only to benefit the powerful and the financiers, speculators, investors, and traders? Does it offer nothing to men, women, and children who are ravaged by the violence of poverty? To answer yes to these questions is to recreate the conditions for conflict and instability. However, if the answer is no, then we can begin to build a better life for all humanity. South Africa knew from the outset that reconstruction and development would be even more difficult than the defeat of the apartheid system. I cannot report that we have succeeded in all our endeavors in South Africa. Yet a great deal has been achieved in the first 5 years of democracy, in the face of many difficulties. The statistics of our progress, thank you. The statistics of our progress are readily available to those that want them, so I will only cite 2 facts. In 1994, 12 million people in our rural areas, some 30% of South Africans, lacked access to clean water, to clean drinking water. Since then, 3 million have gained access to that absolutely basic amenity. In 1994, 2/3, in other words, 63% of South African households lacked electricity. Today, the figure is reduced to 1/3, 36% of households without electricity. An audience such as yourself, will understand what these two examples indicate about our broad program of socio-economic improvement. The scale of the challenge we inherited, the progress we have made, how much more is still to be done. You will appreciate that such improvement, if it is to be sustained, requires enduring changes in our public service, a stable and living democracy, as well as dynamic and sustainable economy. Because development brings great structural change that affects different interests in different ways, the achievement of our goals requires of us the capacity to mobilize a highly complex society in pursuit of broad national objectives. It means building a broad partnership of major social forces. Considering the condition of South African society a few short years ago, I believe that we have made great progress in this regard. What is deeply encouraging is the way in which civil society is becoming actively engaged in transforming our society. In particular, to deal with the most difficult challenges we face. Our recent job summit brought together business, labor, and the development community with government to work for job creation. Business actively assists in our critical battle against crime. The religious community has come together with political parties to give a lead with government in this moral regeneration that will help fight corruption and crime. Farmers, farm workers are working with the police and army to combat rural criminality. Last year, the World Economic Forum gave a global lead to the international business community in the fight against HIV/AIDS. I am pleased to be able to report to you that late last year, a national partnership against AIDS was launched in South Africa by Deputy President Thabo Mbeki, bringing together all sectors of our society, including the private sector, to combat this epidemic. Such partnerships of social forces give our society a resilience and stability that keep it on a steady course, whatever the vagaries of political mood. This environment allows government to take a longer view and consistently apply sound and sustainable economic policies. In the stormy seas of the world financial markets, our medium-sized ship has taken some storm damage, but it continues to sail under its own power. However, like all trading nations of our own growth depends critically on growth in the world economy. When we can least afford it, the current crisis has had a very real impact on our growth rate, as it has done across the world. Though still positive, our growth rate is nearly 3% below our initial projections for this year. Stability in the world economy, and more important, a return to growth in South Asia, Latin America, and Africa are vital. Our own long-term structural development also depends on all of Southern Africa and Africa achieving the same, and on our building economic ties and development cooperation among ourselves. we are making sure but steady progress in overcoming the colonial legacy of poor links, including transportation links between our economies. Cross-border cooperation with our neighbors to promote investment and development grows by the month. We will make progress this year toward a free trade agreement in the SADC area. But much as we have advanced in these and other ways, continuing conflicts are hampering development. The gains we are making could be jeopardized, not only in countries directly involved, but more generally. Such is the interdependence of all our countries. Africa is beyond bemoaning its past for its problem. The task of undoing that past is ours, with the support of those willing to join us in a continental renewal. We have a new generation of leaders who know that we must take responsibility for our own destiny. That we will uplift ourselves only by our own efforts in partnership with those who wish us well. In short, now that Africa is free, we can embark on the realization of our long-held dream of the rebirth of our continent, of its reconstruction and development. One of the greatest effects of this African Renaissance will be the reintegration of the African economies into the world economy, no longer as dependent participants. One dimension to this reintegration is the unfolding of the complex processes that I have reflected on above. These processes will have to emanate from Africa. The other dimension raises a profound and fundamental question as to whether the world economy in its current structure will allow this reintegration. The question is seldom asked, since it is the weaknesses in Africa and the developing world are usually put under the spotlight. But it is an essential question. For Africa to reintegrate its economies, must industrialize and modernize. And their success in doing so will depend on the framework within which this occurs. When Southeast Asia and South Korea, and later some Latin American countries, successfully followed an export-oriented path to industrialization, a new orthodoxy was established on industrialization that relied on the globalized marketplace. For many, globalization was no longer seen as a complex historical process, but as an economic policy panacea. Today, however, we have seen how global financial turmoil can stall industrialization and even deindustrialize in some cases. Finance in abundance, derived from very high levels of development, is destabilizing industrialization processes where they are needed most. Profitable as this may be for individual market actors, it is a grand and destructive irrationality for those countries and their peoples whom it sets back on the development path. And it introduces instability in the global system, whose effects ultimately no economy can escape. This must be stressed, must be addressed. It is, however, not only obstacle to the development of the South. Despite liberalization of trade, there remain areas of protectionism in the developed countries. In agriculture, for example, Europe seeks to protect its rural communities by capturing markets that are the true competitive advantage of the South. In the steel industry, to take another example, the North seeks to protect old industries that will never be able to compete with the modern resource-based production of the South. This restricts an obvious avenue to modern production in Africa. These matters must be addressed in the multilateral fora if we are to ensure that Africa is able, through its own efforts, to reintegrate into the world economy. They form part of those changes to the economic, social, and political world order, which are needed if we are to realize our dreams of a better world for all humanity. They are part of what is necessary if the next century is to be, as it must be, the centuries in which Africa again takes her rightful place in the world. You will therefore understand why this old man, to whom you have granted the privilege of bidding you farewell, has raised such very practical matters of unfinished business. It has been my great privilege to fight a struggle for freedom that the world adopted as its own, and which has been victorious in my lifetime. I have had the honor of representing a people who won the admiration and respect of all nations by reaching out to each other and finding common ground across a divide that seemed unbridgeable. In these last years, I have experienced the complexity of governing a nation that seeks to overcome a legacy of social deprivation. And I'm profoundly aware of how much is still to be done. I have witnessed the enormity of the task still to be completed, of redirecting the international institutions and system in such a way that the prodigious capacity of the world economy shall satisfy the basic needs of all people. Knowing that I leave the governance of South Africa in strong and wise hands, and that there is a new generation of leaders in the world who have recognized the possibility of realizing our dreams of a better world, I approach the end of my public life with my heart full of hope. I thank you for your attention and wish you well in your efforts.
Mr. President, as you just have shown again, your voice in the world community is so important. And even if we know that your succession is in very good hands, Gustavo Mbeki, whom we all have met several times here, but you are needed. So my first question to you is, what will you do after you resign from presidency in order to be still around? Do you want to sit? You can sit.
Well, I believe in standing when dealing with difficult questions, so that I can intimidate you with my height. Now, I have dealt with this question already in my address. that I'm going to stand on the side of the road and to say to you, unemployed, no money, a new wife, and a big family, please help. This is what I'm going to do. But of course, I am a member of the ANC, which is the proud liberation movement of the 20th century. I have got a president now, Thabo Mbeki. I will carry out whatever instructions he gives me and those around him, like the minister here of Trade and Industry, Alec Erwin. I will carry out whatever they want me to do. And of course, I'll be available to all South Africans if they think I can render some service. But of course, our debt to the international community from every part of the globe is great. And I can never forget the fact that they helped us when we were all alone to overthrow, as I have said elsewhere, one of the most brutal systems of racial oppression that we have seen. It is because of that support from the international community that South Africans now, black and white, Afrikaans and English speaking, regard themselves as having a common destiny and are ready to sacrifice for their country. It is for that reason that a country which only a few years ago was regarded as a polecat of the world now is regarded by many as something of a near miracle. And these are the considerations that are going to influence me when I step down. Thank you.
Mr. President, you can count on us that we stand by and that we will make all the efforts. I'm certainly speaking on behalf of all our members, that Africa will not become again marginalized, but become a very strong pillar of the international economy and international decision community. I think that's also very important. I have a last question. You have experienced so much personally in your life. You are so rich in positive and negative life events. Here you have in front of you leaders from governments and business. If you would share with those one single advice which for you is very close to your heart, or in a very simple question, what would you tell us to be better leaders?
Well, it's extremely difficult to prescribe for highly competent and experienced people, such as the leaders who are here, who are actually helping to influence the policies, not only of their respective countries, but of humanity as a whole. It would therefore be arrogant for me to suggest to you that this is what is important for you to promote. But I have been asked questions on countless occasions. Who are your heroes? And I have said, my heroes are those men and women who have emerged in various parts of the world, who regard the entire world as the theater of their operations, as the cornerstone of their efforts, who fight the gross violation of human rights wherever this is done, who have declared war on poverty, hunger, disease, crime, men and women who believe that in every country, in every political organization, there are good men and women. And men and women who try to create an environment for these good men and women to show their talents, their skills. Those are my heroes. Anybody who loves to fight socio-economic issues which have handicapped millions of people throughout the globe, those are my heroes. Those who know that the word democracy is empty if the people have nothing to put in their stomachs. Because most of the crime that you see, although there are exceptions, most of the crime that you see throughout the world, it is because of lack of employment, poverty, and so on. And those people who have committed themselves to address such social evils are my heroes. It is for that reason that I have said my heroes are not only the men and women whose life ends when we bury them. It is those like Plato, Washington, Shaka in my country, whose name and their works live beyond the grave. And people who are fighting these social evils, who love the children, the most vulnerable of society, women, the disabled, those are my heroes. And I have no doubt that this is also your ambition in your life.
Thank you. Thank on behalf of all of you again, President Mandela, our dear friend, and to remind him of the snow of Switzerland when he goes back to South Africa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I just repeat what I have said also in this plenary a few years ago, that the English writer Oscar Wilde once said, when you see a Swiss jumping through the window to commit suicide, please follow him, because down there you will see a lot of wealth. Now, this Swiss, I am prepared to follow him if he jumps through the window, because I know always he has got inherent wisdom in him. And that is why he has led us so well and brought the major industrial leaders of the world together in this forum. I thank you. Thank you.
Convergence FM.
Convergence FM.
La radio panafricaine 103.9.